So the idea, I don't know how much Melissa told you about what we're doing,
I didn't get a chance to
um,
really.
we're just kind of presenting an opportunity to veterans like yourselves to, tell us your story, and the library posts it on
YouTube.
their YouTube channel. Pretty much uncut. I'm not sure how you're really doing it.
So, I've been trying to, since we kind of have a format to the interviews, I try to like go through the introduction, and then usually try to break it into two sections of stories. Some of our interviews have gone really long, so I end up editing a little bit down, and some of them we don't have enough, so I end up putting the whole thing up. So, just depends on how the interview goes.
Yeah. So we'll put it on YouTube, but the format is pretty much. I'm just here to kind of give you a little impetus. If you kind of steer off course a little bit, I'll ask you something maybe to bring you back. But it's your story. It's one of the reasons we're doing this is so that your relatives as well as anybody in Cherry Hill or anybody can in the future
That's neat
can hear your story right
because
from your mouth.
most of them haven't heard it, because most veterans don't say too much.
Right. So I think this is a great opportunity to
Okay,
tell your story and anything else you want to say.
sounds good.
So
You let me know when to go. Am I supposed to sign this as far as the?
That's a release form. You can sign it after or
Okay.
before. It doesn't matter.
so anytime you want to start, I mean usually I ask to just start, state your name,
Okay.
and then tell us about where you grew up,
Okay.
and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. What? Should I start?
Sure.
Hmm.
My name's Lieutenant Colonel Alfred Bancroft, United States Marine Corps retired, 33 years on active duty. I want to tell you how this all began. I met Carlton Rue, who was a Medal of Honor recipient from Lindenwold in 1949. And I was so impressed by him, I told my father, I said, Dad, I want to be a Marine. And I was only 10 years old at the time. And to go back before that, I was adopted by this 46-year-old gentleman that took both of us, my twin brother and myself, adopted us. And because I'm here today because of how he raised me. And we were in a Camden home for children for 5 years. And when I turned 10, I was adopted. And greatest thing that ever happened to me. After that, I graduated from Collinsville High School. I knew I had promised myself I would join the Marine Corps because I was just so impressed. So I joined the Marine Corps and got my twin brother Art to go in there with me. In June 28, 1958, we were Paris Island, which is not the same as Paris, France. It's definitely tough training because they train you to be Marines. And it's tougher when you have a twin brother in the same platoon. And it was lucky for me that I was about inches better than he was. So he got the beating, not beatings, but the hard, what do you say, the harder discipline than I did because I was faster than he was, I was stronger. But he got back at me with pugil sticks, which are the sticks that you fight one another.
Mm-hmm.
He whooped the heck out of me. And that was his way of getting back, so he enjoyed that. We graduated in September of 1958, went from Paris Island, South Carolina to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. We went through what we call the ITR, Infantry Training Regiment, which is a training to become either what your MOS or good at weaponry. So that's what that really was. Before we went there, we had 10 days leave when we came home. Then we went back and got all the training. Then once that happened, we were told what our MOS, military occupational specialty, is. I signed up for combat correspondence since my father owned a retrospect in Collingswood, and I had some experience with that. And, you know what they say, you never get what you wish for, so I became a heavy equipment operator. It's about 12 inches long on a map, the the difference between the two. But that's what they made me, and that's what I became.
How about your brother?
He became a armor, small arms armor, and the 8-inch howitzer armor, which meant he repaired those weapons. When 1961 came along, I decided that I wanted to get out of the Marine Corps. I had my 3 years honorable service, so I got out of the Marine Corps, and finally worked for the Courier Post newspaper for about 2 years. And my brother went elsewhere, and he got a job in a dressograph, multigraph company at the time. And he got married, and I was looking at a calendar on the wall in the Courier Post. It was a camel crossing the desert. And I said, what the heck am I doing here? So the next day I put in 2 weeks notice that I was going to go back to the Marine Corps. The captain that saw me before I went to the Marine Corps said, you know, you're going to have a lot of younger people that's going to be over you in rank. And I told him, I realize that, sir. You know, I had to say sir. But he said, you're going to have a hard time. And I didn't realize how tough it was until I went back to the Marine Corps. Because after 3 years experience being an NCO, I had these young whippersnappers tell me what to do, but not only once, but 3 times. And I took it for quite a while. But this one, I went to Okinawa, and then when I was in Okinawa, this one NCO, I was a PFC at the time, told me to dig a ditch. So I did. He said, no, that's not right. Dig it up again. And 3 times. The 3rd time, I co-copped him. And I went up before the captain for office hours, thinking, boy, there goes my career here. I just got back in. But he said, did you do that? I said, yes, sir. He said, no, I told him why. And the captain, thank goodness, had common sense to realize this was not a good NCO. So they slapped my wrist basically and sent me back to work. So I got through that particular time in my life, because that could have ruined my career. I could have got out of the Marine Corps at that time. So I retired not retired, I got honorably discharged in 1961, as I said. Went to the Courier Post, and then saw the camel cross the desert, and I got accepted in the Marine Corps. But I was out so long that I lost all my ranks, so I went back in as a private, which is the lowest man on the totem pole. And but I wanted it that bad, so it didn't matter to me. And as time went along, 2 months later, I was in my first tour in Vietnam. So I didn't get my wish as far as seeing a camel cross the desert, but they did have tigers in Vietnam, believe it or not. And
So Vietnam was, when did you go to Nam?
I went, we were the first Marines that landed in Vietnam in 1965. So I went to Vietnam basically prepared to go in 1964. And I have no regrets. I survived. And like, let's see, 1965, we were aboard, I can tell any story, right? We were on an LST, which is, by the way, the worst ship in the Navy. It's a flat bottom boat. I call them boats. The Navy doesn't like that. But what had happened was, there was a typhoon off the coast of Okinawa, or Philippines. We were in the Philippines. And that typhoon hit, and we were on this ship. They said, eat crackers. I must have eaten 3 boxes of crackers. Didn't do any good. But the typhoon really was terrifying, just to be on the ship and all the equipment going back and forth. So finally we came back when that ship left the Philippines, right the day before, as I was a Lance Corporal, I think, at the time, and we were loading the ship. And of course, Marines are, ingenuity is unbelievable what we can come up with. So our buddies, my buddy said, hey, Al, let's fill these San Magoo bottles, which are about that high, and put them in the water cans, which water is supposed to be in there. So we loaded up about 100 of those cans full of San Miguel beer. And a lieutenant came by, and he says, PFC, what are you doing? And I tried to play the old dumb act, you know, look the other way. Didn't work. He kicked the can and found out that the beer cans were in there. He made us take every one of them out and throw them out in the bay. So as I said, we went out, and 3 months later we came back to the Philippines. We swam out to the water, got about 80 bottles of beer and I had a beach party, so we didn't lose all that beer. But these are different things you come up with. In fact, we made a little tune. In 1966, we were aboard an LST type ship. Whoop Whoop was their leader, Whoop Whoop was their man. All day long he'd scream and shout, who put the beer in the water can? So it's funny how you remember things like that. This was 1965. So,
So when you first got to Vietnam, what was it like? You were there really early.
yes, we were the first Marines that landed in Vietnam. And the weird part about it, when we landed, we didn't have any weapons. We actually landed with no weapons. And what are you supposed to do? Go bang? You know. Anyway, 2 days later we got our weapons, but the enemy was 300 yards off. And could be scary, you know. Hand to hand is not like shooting somebody 50, 100 meters out. So we finally got our weapons and we secured that.
So did you see action over there?
Yes, sir. I had 3 tours. So I was going to do it till I got it right. And the first tour, right, we were with shore parties. Shore parties like the engineers, like the CVs are for the Navy. Well, we were the engineers for the Marine Corps. And we had red patches because we were on the beach and we unloaded all the supplies and weapons, the whole works. And that was it. My boss, the captain, said, nobody tells you what to do. So I had an Army lieutenant come up to me and says, I want you to move that over there. I said, sir, all due respect, I can't do it. He said, well, I'm going to write you up. I said, okay. So he went to the captain. He chewed that lieutenant out. He says, he was doing his job and you get off my beach. Little things like that. So it's good when you have a leader that backs you up like that. So we unloaded a lot of equipment on the beach. We were mortared the third day that we were on the beach.
This is on your first tour?
Yes. And mortars are scary because you can hear them coming in and bouncing close to you. Thank goodness they had bad eye shot, so they didn't hit us. But if you weren't working as equipment, you were on perimeter defense. So we had watching for the enemy.
So did you have a weapon?
Yes, I had the best weapon in the world.
Which was?
50 caliber machine gun. And it was my job to go out in the morning, put it on a post. And those things are heavy, by the way. And you put it on a tripod. And that was my job. For security.
Was it mobile? Did you have it on a Jeep or?
No, I put it on my shoulder and just
really?
trudged out there. In fact, one of the jokes was, one day it was really raining and I got stuck. Here I am with a 50 caliber on my shoulder, knee deep in mud. It took 4 guys to pull me out, get me to my position. But you do it, you know, you just make things work.
So did you carry your ammunition too? Gun and ammunition?
Right, I actually had slung over my shoulders and that one can. So I had a can of ammo and just walked out. It's amazing what you can do.
How much did that all weigh?
Too much. It had a lot of weight. You know, the weapon alone is, what, 20, 25 pounds at least. But that's what we did, and we secured the area. Our job was to make sure that the troops got the beans and bullets, as you say. A lot of Marines consider, you know, combat Marines, they don't consider us combat Marines because we're on the beach and we have tents and stuff like that, but we did as much work to protect them. And the saying was, it takes 9 Marines to support 1 Marine combat Marine in a combat situation. So over the years, I felt bad that I wasn't actually in, you know, patrols and things. I volunteered for them later as my second, third tour, but I felt bad like I wasn't doing my job. So I think that's why I kept on volunteering to go back. I volunteered all 3 times. The third time they said that the Marine Corps directive stated that you have to wait 2 years before you can go back on your 3rd tour. So that was 1967. 67, I was back in the States. 1969 came around 2 years later. My orders came. I was single at the time when this all happened. But after that, I had gotten married in 1968, and my daughter was 4 weeks old, and I got a nice letter saying, congratulations, you're going back to Vietnam. That was my toughest tour, because you had family, back in the States,
Right.
and it was really tough.
Did you still want to go on that third?
There was no doubt about it. I volunteered, I was a Marine, I was gonna go. I mean, it was hard on my wife, but, you do what you have to.
How long were your tours for?
13 months. And we didn't have iPads, we didn't have,
Oh, no.
cell phones. We had a thing that, it would take you, thank you, would take you almost, 6 months to get to it. It was, I forget what system it was, but you had to say over and out. So I finally got my wife on this 6 months after I was there. She refused to say over and out, so I never got to talk to her. So, but that's the way it was at that time.
So you were 65, 67, and 69.
65, 66, 67, 69, and 70.
So can you describe the differences each time you went back as to?
I think pretty much the first tour, in fact, just to show you how it was different, we hit the beach, just like Marines in the movies, you have your weapons or whatever, hit the beach.
Was that off of an LSD?
Yes. You jump in the water, you don't jump in it, you step in the water. I'm not 6'8", so I got wet up to here, and then you just walk until you have dry land. But we hit the beach like that, and we looked up, and there were 20 beautiful Vietnamese women with leis around their necks coming down to the beach to greet us with the mayor of Da Nang. That's the difference. That was the only time that happened. That was my first tour. But it was an interesting, I thought, Navy Marines always argue the fact, I thought the Navy really screwed up and put us in Hawaii when we landed like that. Marines think about those things. But it was neat. It was neat.
So the first time that, I guess what I'm hearing you say is that the population was
really
very friendly.
Yes, we did. Yeah, exactly. And the kids were there, and we would give them sea rats, in cans and stuff like that. The second tour was much different. I guess I can say this as a young Marine. By the way, I was 25 the first tour. I was called the old man of the outfit because I was 25 and everybody else was 17 or 18. But that was a badge of honor being the old guy in the outfit. And you get a feeling of camaraderie, just like the Marines today in Afghanistan and Iraq. They get a leg burn off, they get hurt, they want to go back. People don't understand you're with a unit, and that's what I enjoyed, because I knew my person on my left or right was going to protect my butt. And so anyway, I got home in '66, and I didn't like barracks life. Barracks life was too confusing. So I volunteered right away to go back overseas. Took me about 30 days, so I was on my way back in the end of '66. And this time I landed, I was in Da Nang the first tour, I was in Chulai the second tour. And,
which is where?
Okay, Da Nang's up here, Chulai's down here, and we're the I Corps area in Vietnam, along the coast of Vietnam.
So the second time you were much closer to Saigon.
Yes. Yeah. And when I went back, as I said, I was single, so it didn't bother me. I didn't have anybody really to worry about me, or vice versa, no family and thing. So July, when we were there in support again, and we did our job. And I do it again. So I came home in '67, but while we were there, I had to tell you, in '66 and '67, we established an orphanage for Vietnamese kids. And we had a Girl Scout campfire girls from Portland, Oregon, sending supplies over. What I'm getting at is, they asked me to come see them when I came home. As I said, I was single, I didn't have to get home right away. So I stopped off in Portland, Oregon to see this campfire girls that had sent all the supplies to the orphanage. and I found out that one of the mothers of the girls had written a book, and the book was entitled "The True Heroes of Vietnam," and it had my picture on the front page,
Wow.
meaning that she was really religious and she was really trying to help, you know, the I was surprised, you know, when I saw it, I said, hey, that's me. But, and we met one time, as I said, when I went to Portland, Oregon. I stayed there, I was supposed to be 1 day. I stayed about 4 days. Meanwhile, my family's still waiting for me to come home, but, you know, hey, I'll be there when I get there.
Sure.
So we had, that was neat, because they did a great job, and because of them, the orphans had something. So then I left there and went home to New Jersey, and I had about 20 days leave. Excuse me. And first thing, my brother had a party for me. So we had a party. Really neat. He lived in Oakland at the time. Still lives in the same house in Oakland. And this girl came up to me and says, I hope you don't mind, but we're engaged. Yeah, here I am, a Marine, just getting home from Vietnam. I don't want to be engaged. She says, well, we're having our engagement party Saturday, which was a couple days away. So I had a sense of humor. I said, hey, fine, I'll go. So I went to the engagement party, played the whole role, and 2 weeks later I broke up. I wasn't ready to get married. But the friend of mine that came home with me ended up marrying me. So I think he's still mad at me. But she was a nice girl. It's just I wasn't ready to get married. So I was home on leave. So this is 67. And then I met a Marine sergeant overseas before I came home. And his name was Frank Yensel. And I said, look, I'll stop off and see your family. Now realize the picture. I'm a confirmed bachelor. So I met his 2 sisters. So a year later, I ended up marrying his older sister. So we've been married for 45 years now.
And where were they from?
They were from Belmar.
Okay, so they're local.
But he was young. I was 8 years older than he was. And I was more or less a fatherly figure for him. They said, hey, take care of him. And I did. He had the toughest job in the Marine Corps. He had a weather balloon outfit. He had his own hooch, you know, own hut. He had TV. He had a refrigerator. Hell, I'd go over there. I'd look muddy. I looked like I just came out of hell. And I go there. He said, do you want a beer? It was unbelievable. His job was 10 times a day, go outside, blow up a balloon, and put it in the air. That was his job.
And see what direction it blows.
Really tough job. But that's what happened. In fact, I went home and ended up marrying his sister.
So what were your quarters like when you were in Vietnam?
We had what you call a jungle hooch, you know, with the wooden floor and the canvas over the top. So it wasn't too bad. It was
Did you guys build them?
the Seabees built it for
The
us.
Seabees built them.
Seabees we get along with the Seabees because we have a lot in common. In fact, my second tour I went on in '67. I went on R&R, rest and recuperation. I went to Kowloon, China. For what a time! I mean, you get 5 days, and the first night I sat at the bar. I set up 7, 7, and 7 because it sounded pretty good. So I drank all those, and then I went to my room, plush room. I couldn't put the key in the door, so I ended up sleeping outside the door until the next morning. What a waste! Anyway, we had a good old time. That's what R&R is for, to relax and take a break.
Sure.
And I definitely did that.
So most of where you were stationed was on the beach or close to the beach?
Close to the beach because of the
So you were always unloading ships,
yes,
not planes.
no, and volunteering. Yeah, volunteer is not a good word, but you don't volunteer. But Marines happen to volunteer. I went out on a couple patrols because again, I felt like I wasn't doing enough. Just being supporting the troops, I felt that I had to do a little bit more, and luckily it worked out. Came off a patrol one morning. We came in from night. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I was leading a squad. All of a sudden, I fell in a fox. My rifle tip tore it from here to here, and all because they changed the positions before we got in. But anyway, I survived that, and I had a broken ankle, the same incident, but I stayed there. So,
So by your third time back in '69 when you went back, how different was it then? By that time, this country,
you know,
there was a building anti-war movement here.
and
So how did that play into your life?
well, I was a Marine, and I could care what they were saying back in those days because I felt I was doing the right thing. I mean, when you join the service, you don't whip out and say, "Hey, I want to go to Canada," like people did. But and you know, you have your agency. Even in the Marine Corps, you have your agency. If you make the wrong choice, you get locked up. But I just felt that I couldn't believe what was going on back in the States.
So did any of that transfer to, or did you notice any of that transferring to any of the guys in
Well, we
Vietnam?
talk about it, of course, and some would say, "Hey, man, what's happening? You know, we're here to defend our country, and our own people are going against us." And that was the majority. I didn't really have anybody in my outfit that was going against that. Uh, and a lot of people know we had a lot of problems over there. We had a Black Panther outfit. I got to tell you this story. This is a good one. You won't believe it, but I'll tell you anyway. A lieutenant was on. He was the officer of the day. I was the deputy officer of the day as a staff sergeant. And the lieutenant says, "Bancroft, I want you to go in and break up that meeting." It was a Black Panther meeting of all Marines too, by the way. So I walked in the hut, and I pulled my 45 out. And I said, "You have exactly 10 seconds to get the hell out of here." And within 8 seconds, everybody left. There must have been 15, 13 of them left. There were 2 left that stood there staring me right in the eye. He said, "Hey, man, what are you going to do about it?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I've been told to get you to disperse." "Hey, man." Then I cocked my pistol. That scared the hell out of this one. He almost turned white with fright. And then he left. So I had the leader back in there. And he just wasn't going to go. So I put her around the chamber and took a shot at his foot. I hit it. He said, "You can't do that." Well, he wouldn't leave. So then they took him to the infirmary, you know, the medics. But he would not leave. And I was doing what maybe I went a little overboard, but he wasn't going to leave. And he would attack me if anything else. So anyway, the next day, I had to go see the colonel because I shot somebody, and I thought, there goes my stripes. You know, I had made staff sergeant, and I went into him. "Bancroft, tell me the story." So I told him the complete story. He said, "Well, you know, I have to do something." And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "I'm going to charge you 25 cents for the round. Now get the hell out of my office." So that wasn't too bad. I paid 25 cents for the round. On my way out, he says, "And by the way, Staff Sergeant, tell that lieutenant to get in my office." And I know that lieutenant got his butt chewed out. First of all, he sent me in. I wasn't the senior person. He should have been there with me. But anyway, that's one of the many stories that people don't hear. And I don't regret it because we do what we have to do.
So, and this was in your third tour.
That was my third tour.
So when did you finally leave?
I left in, I think it was July of 70. I went April or so. It was April. It seemed like I went over it every month of April. So probably April, May of 70.
Of 70. Where were you stationed on the third tour?
Okay, there's a place called Hoi An, which was south of Chulai. So we have Da Nang, Chulai, and Hoi An.
So you were way down.
Yes, sir.
Way south.
We were there to support the 7th Marines. And it was an interesting tour.
So when you came home, then what? You had a kid and a wife, one kid?
Yeah, a daughter who was 4 weeks old when I left. When I came home, we was almost 13, 14 months old, and she wouldn't speak to me for a year. She didn't know who I was. But I tell everybody after that, now I have a hard time keeping them from talking. But that was a sincere thing that was hard to take when you go home and and your own job won't talk to you.
So what did you do when you came home?
Okay,
For work?
okay, I had 30 days, leave, took the leave first, then, I became an instructor at Courthouse Bay, which is an engineer school in the Marine Corps. So I instructed out there for quite a while.
Still as a Marine?
Yes, yes.
And that's how your rank was Lieutenant Colonel?
No, I was a staff sergeant then. Still enlisted. And then I was an instructor for 2 years. In 1973, I got sent to South Bend, Indiana for I&I, inspector instruction duty. Cold. I thought it was cold here. It gets 50 below now. So anyway, I was there. As a staff sergeant, I replaced a Marine that had been killed working on a piece of equipment that crushed him to death. And you don't ever want to replace somebody like that because the rules and regulations get so tight that. But anyway, I survived that, and I got selected for warrant officer when I was at South Bend, Indiana.
Which is what? I don't know what
Okay,
warrant
you go
officer
from
does.
warrant officer's the first commission rank. You go from I went from staff sergeant to warrant officer, WO1, and then which was neat. I went to engineer school as an officer. Then when I graduated #1 in the class. I got promoted to lieutenant LDO, limited duty officer. And they said when you're a limited duty officer, you don't have a command. That's crazy. I had 3 companies, and it was the best job I ever had. Working with people who are Marines, and I'd say the Army does it too, but I mean, having a company of 120 men and women, their job is to protect you, and they did. I didn't make my rank because of me, I made it because of people like that. And they call the LDO status, we're called Mustangs, because we went from enlisted to officer. I love the title Mustang, I think that's great.
So were you still out in Indianapolis at this point?
No, in fact, I was only there 7 months, and once you get promoted, you have to go to school. You don't actually get promoted right away. I had to go to Quantico, Virginia, and go through another boot camp, a warrant officer boot camp. Graduated from that, then I was sent out to California after that.
And where's your family this whole time? They with you? Or
Once
they
I left to
here?
go from South Bend, Indiana, they came home to New Jersey. My wife went home with her mother and stayed with her mother. So that helps to have mothers in that case because, it's crazy moving all the time. And
That can be tough for both of you.
that's why marriages don't work out too well in a lot of cases in the service, especially drill instructors. The divorce rate for drill instructors is something like 98%, because they're young women, never see their husband because they work something like 22 hours a day. So, and that's a proven fact that that's what the divorce rates were. I was never a drill instructor, thank goodness. That's the reason I'm still married. But I enjoyed every bit of what I did in the Marine Corps. I went to California, became as I said, I was a first lieutenant. Went to the 11th Marine Regiment, which is an artillery regiment, and they made me the safety officer, little bitty jobs officer. When you're always at the lowest rank, you get all the little bitty jobs. One was safety officer, and thank goodness I had the foresight to take that job seriously, because after I was there a month, there was a fire and destroyed a whole building. Of course, who do they come to? They come to the safety officer, and what happened? I had documented everything that was wrong with that building. Nobody took action on it. The thing that saved my butt was the fact I had it documented. You learn to do that in the service.
So you spent your entire working life then in the Marines?
In the Marine Corps, up until 1991, when I retired, and I had over 33 years. And I'm still working. I'm working with Veterans Affairs, so I'm still with the vets. So it's really great. My wife wanted to get back to the East Coast because her family and everything else. Here we were in California, and I made captain in 1977. Well, in 1982, I was passed over for major. And when you get passed over twice, it's called the kiss of death because you'll never go anywhere. You usually have to retire. But I had a good background because my permanent rank was CW04 at that time. So if I got shafted, excuse the expression, from making major, now I could go back to CW4, which is the best rank in the Marine Corps. But it didn't happen that way. What happened is I put some paperwork in, asked him why. Then I found out that this lieutenant colonel had been passed over for colonel, and he was taking everybody along. He was literally putting it on the fitness report. One bad comment on the fitness report, your career is over. So fortunately, they found out he was doing this. I had a young lieutenant in my outfit out there when I was a captain. Best lieutenant in the world. He said, sir, if this is going to happen, because same thing happened to him, he got out. He got out. The Marines lost one of the finest officers I ever saw because of somebody revenge, you know. So anyway, we left California, trying to think exactly when. My wife got her wish to go back to Camp Lejeune. So I reported to Camp Lejeune. I was, at that time, a captain, still a captain, because this had all happened, you know, with this major promotion thing. They took the bad fitness report out, so the next year I'm up for it, and the next year I made it. But before I did that, I was assigned to Engineer Support Company in Camp Lejeune, which is a company. And boy, that's the best job that anybody ever could have, having a company and leading men and women. So this lieutenant colonel, when I reported in, he says, "What do you want to do, Al?" And I said, "Sir, what do you have available?" He said, "Well, I have a company here." When he said that, I said, "Don't go any further, sir. I'd love to do that." And we did that. And he made me the company commander. I got promoted about the following year in major. And once you make major, the command goes to somebody else, which, you know, usually the rank structure is such. If you're a captain, you'll have a company. If you're a major, not so much, because they'll put you on a staff job. Well, I hate staff job. It means you're sitting behind a desk doing all this paperwork. But anyway,
So can you turn down a promotion, or?
oh no, you wouldn't want to do that because then your career's over then.
Oh.
But I made major, and they put me on facilities management for Camp Lejeune. And one of the neat things is my highest ribbon or medal I'm wearing today is not because of Vietnam. It's because of Desert Storm. I was assigned to put 30,000 reserve Marines up on the base. And because the way in which I did it, it worked out great. They awarded me the Legion of Merit.
At Lejeune?
Yes. They awarded me the Legion of Merit, which is the 7th highest award you get as far as awards go. But it's weird how that happens. You know, 3 years in Vietnam, I didn't get as much as a scratch, never Purple Heart or anything, but I come back and you have good cases too. Like I had one lieutenant colonel that didn't like, I was lieutenant colonel by that time. By the time the general told me, he says, "Al, it's in your hands. I don't want to hear any problems." Of course, this one lieutenant colonel was raised in hell. He says, "I won't sleep in that barracks." And I had to say to him, I said, "Sir," I said, "you have two choices. One, you sleep in a barracks, or I'll put your butt out in the parade deck in a tent." Then didn't hear anything after that. But the general said, you know, when he says you get it done, you get it done. Fortunately, I had enough skills to do that. So, and then 1991 came by. By the way, it took me 28 years to make lieutenant colonel, so it wasn't a quick rank for me. But I retired in 91, stayed at Camp Lejeune, became a facilities for a beach area. It's weird. There were 5 different condominiums, and I was in charge of 5 of them. You know how much I was getting paid? $5 an hour. I was working around the clock. It was worse than my combat, you know, and my wife didn't like it either. But my boss at that time said, "Well, you're retired. You get retirement. We don't have to pay you anything else." Well, I put up with that for 5 years. And finally, I had enough. I said, "Hey, I want to do something else in my life." He turned around to his secretary and hired her for my position, and that was it. Then my niece, this was 1997, years had passed, 1996, 7. My niece said, "Hey, I got a great job for you to manage a hospital, be maintenance, not maintenance, but administrative person for 60,000 a year." I said, "Hey, that sounds pretty good." So I left my wife and the kids down there. I came up here 2 days before I got the job. It fell through. So here I am up in New Jersey. My wife said, "When you coming back?" I said, "When I get a good job, I'll let you know." 2 years. I was up here working, delivering pizza, odd jobs. My dad said there's always a job, and I believed, and that's what I did. And I finally met Jim Beach, who was the Camden County, uh, one of the Camden County officers. Yeah, he's a great guy. And his dad was even greater. He's the one I told you was a World War II Marine. He said to his son, he said, "If you don't hire that colonel, you're crazy." So 4 hours later, I got a telephone call. And we were at Lee and Eddie's pizza place in Oak Glen. And he said, "Would you like to work with me?" So I went in for the interview. This was Friday. I went in for the interview Monday. And I've been with him, I'm working on 17 years now. But
His office is right down the street on 70?
Yes, yes. So I've had a great life.
So I wanted to ask you, the medals that you have, I mean, they're certainly impressive.
Well,
Can you tell us some of
I
of
just
what
want
some
to
of
let you
them
know
are?
that I wasn't in it for the medals. When I got my first one, I said, "Wow." And then they took it away from me 6 months later because I went to Nam. You had a choice of getting the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, which I was awarded, and it was awarded to me. And then when Vietnam came along, before they had the medal set up, they said, "Well, do you want the Armed Forces Expeditionary or the Vietnam?" I said, "I didn't realize I was going to get 8 campaigns in Vietnam. I could have kept the Armed Forces Expeditionary and had but that's the only medal that was ever awarded to me. I lost because of the decision not taking it." So, but yeah, that's a Legion of good conduct. That means I wasn't caught. Seriously. And I tell that to World War II vets. They love the National Defense with the Star. And then Vietnam, actually, I've got that in that one. Vietnam Cross of Gallantry, and there's two of them, Vietnam Cross of Gallantry, which are these two.
The two on the right?
Yeah, this is the Vietnam campaign. This is Vietnam service. And then when ribbons don't have medals, you put them on these side. So I have the Combat Action Ribbon and Sea Service Deployment Ribbon. And I forgot what the other one is. I've got it written down somewhere. But, I was never in it for the medals. They come as you do
Sure,
things.
sure.
So,
No, you wouldn't have lasted that long if that's all you were in it for was the medals.
Exactly.
So, just in closing, any final words? I mean, it sounds like you lived a fulfilling life.
I've had the greatest life anybody could expect. Going from the Cameron Home for Children to the age of 5 to 10, being adopted, joining the Marine Corps. I've had the perfect life, and I do it all over again. In fact, I have to tell you, when I went back in 1964, I said, "Well, let me check the Air Force out." Don't tell anybody who said that. But I checked the Air Force out, and they said, "You're not smart enough." I said, "You've got to be kidding me. I had 3 years in the Marine Corps." I said, "Well, guess what? I'm going back in the Marine Corps. They accept people who aren't as smart as you." But my older brother, Woody, had 20 years in the Air Force. He lives in Georgia right now. So I'll tell you, I just had the perfect life. And I
That's
do it
great.
all over again. And I appreciate you all listening to me.
Thanks for telling your story. It was great.
Can I tell you one more?
Sure.
Okay. We were on the island, one of the islands off Da Nang or Chu Lai. We were building a water pit, to have fresh water. So it was getting dark, and I was in my shorts. I had a K-bar knife and a jungle hat. That was all I had because we had to go down in the mud and all that stuff. So it was getting dark, so my buddy and I started to walk back. All of a sudden, something jumped me. stark. I just took my skateboard, stabbed it about 16 times, and ran like hell back to the base. But we went out there the next morning. This place was called Monkey Mountain, by the way. So we came back. There was a 5-foot monkey that had jumped me.
Wow.
And nobody believes that story, but it was. Little things you never hear about, you know. Good meat too. We cooked it, had monkey meat.
Not too tough?
No, a little sinewy. But other than that, it's surprising what we could. Again, I thank you for giving me
Oh,
the
thank you,
opportunity
it
to be
was
here.
great, it was great.
All right.
I have nightmares about monkeys now.
Oh, yeah?
Jumping out, yeah.
What's that?
Whenever the other gentleman that we interviewed talked a lot about the wildlife that was in Vietnam
He
too.
had
They had
snakes
and a tiger.
Yep.
and tiger.
I saw a tiger. Thank goodness, not too close. A lot of snakes. A lot of snakes. I don't like snakes.
I don't like snakes even
You
a
know,
little bit.
we always had to go through a 3-day training course before we went to Nam, so I went 3 times. We caught a rattlesnake, and I'm not telling you, it was from here to the end of the table, about that. That fed a good platoon of people once we caught that, because what they do is give you a sock of rice, hard rice, and an orange, and that's supposed to last you 3 days. Well, the first 6 hours it was going, you know, so you had to throw rocks at rabbits and catch other things. So that snake was a huge